was done, and it specified that the recommendation for award would be made to the lowest bidder. That was done based on past practice and advice to staff several years ago. And so that RFP went out in the same way that it's gone out in the past. So there's an explanation there as to why it went out that way when in reality it didn't have to go out in that manner. So there's that clarification item. And with that, staff has provided two recommendations. One would either be to go with the recommendation that was provided at the last council meeting based on the RFP, or reject all proposals and reissue the RFP. I would make a statement that as of now, as of at least prior to today, our current service provider has given notice that they will stop providing service at the end of this month. So Director Vu has staff that will be available to perform this work on a short-term basis, utilizing overtime, maybe some equipment rental, and things of that nature. So with that, I will stop talking.
This question is for the Director of Public Works, Chao Wu. I just wanted to ask you, I know that your staff is going to step up to the plate and take care of these responsibilities. I wanted to ask you, is that an inconvenience for the city, and can you just share a little bit about if any challenges are entailed in this move if we decide to either reject this proposal and all bids?
There will be some impacts to our department. We will have to increase our turnaround time for service requests, and we have to rent a riding mower. We do not have a riding mower in our department, so we have to find one or rent one. The overtime will also be used, so staff, I'll have to augment that staff time, so that will be the impact on our department in the interim.
Thank you. Is there a major difference between the amount of resources, monetary resources that the city would have to spend compensating staff and renting the equipment versus actually paying the contractor for their services?
It has to be negotiated with the contractor month to month. So we did talk to the contractor if he continued month to month, but he said that he was not able to due to overhead. So we'd have to negotiate that month to month.
Chao, I think Councilmember Arsena, though, I think the question there would be, does it cost more for the city staff to do the work as opposed to if you were just to approve a contract, or if there were a contract with the existing contractor? And I think the answer would be there'd be offsetting costs to some degree. I don't know, Director Vu, if you have an idea whether it would cost more for staff to do it as opposed to if we had an agreement in place.
The temporary, as in a temporary solution, if I went month to month versus overtime, it would probably be minimal. It'd be minimal.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, so for this particular RFP, I know that in the past we've gone with not precisely the lowest one, we've gone with others in many scenarios, like the transportation that we did sometime this year, the grant writing that we also just, added somebody as well, and then other, so why is this particular one so different?
This is a maintenance contract. This is not, the last council that was advised through the city, through staff, Alvarez Glassman's firm, their opinion was that this is a maintenance contract. It was not considered a professional service contract. So we were directed to go with the lowest responsible qualified bidder. And we were to specify our qualifications, whether it be 5 years of service or they had to have special certification from the state. We had to specify those qualifications, make sure they met those minimum qualifications. And if they were the lowest bidder, then that gave the city the best price. That is in the best interest of the city to go with that approach. And that approach is practical.
Yeah.
It works.
Just because in the past we've gone, and just since we've been here in the last 9 months, we don't always go with the lowest one. We go with what's best in the outcome. For instance, sometimes we get a bigger discount when we give them a 3-year contract versus a 2-year contract, correct? Same thing with other contracts, because we've done that. So in this particular case, my concern is that, we want, if I were, well, Mr. City Attorney, my question goes to you then. If we were to go in the opposite direction of what was listed this are we able to do that, or should we reject and then we start over? What would that process look like? The previous attorney is the one who established this verbiage.
Yeah, so I think I take a different opinion than, or have a different opinion than previous legal counsel with respect to this item. When it comes to this type of agreement, it is something that does not need to be awarded to the lowest responsible bidder. However, it's my understanding that the RFP was drafted in a manner in which you had to award it to the lowest responsible bidder. So we're in that position now. If you would like to see if you get additional proposals, or there is perhaps other things that you would want to see in a proposal submitted by one of these vendors or others, what I would recommend you do is you reject all bids, and then you go back out to bid, and you would have a little bit more control over how this particular RFQ would look. You could ask different things than what is currently before you
Because
and
my
what was
only
in the
concern is
RFP.
that, we're kind of being forced to go with this particular vendor versus, if I know that, there's another company who's offering union jobs that offers, equal wages for men and women, it's giving a good, environment to work in, it's gonna be a partner to the city, then that's the person that I wanna go with versus somebody that I'm being, kind of locked in to vote for because it's the lowest one. When it's like, is it the benefit of the city to go with the lowest one? Yes, but it's also a benefit to my city to have people who are underprivileged, like the youth, for them to have programs, for them to have an investment. If there's somebody here who would like to have a youth employment program in the summer, and they can pay for it, and we have a company that's willing to do that, I'd rather go with them and, not save those $6,000 and give it to the youth versus being forced to vote for someone who's not gonna do anything to my city, than just pay for what we're getting, the service we're getting for,
Yeah, if I may, Mayor, members of the City Council, unfortunately, you're sort of locked into what was actually asked for in the RFP of the proposer. So the things that you're sort of interested in considering, the fact that some companies may have union workers, the fact that some may offer community benefit. Unfortunately, this RFP didn't ask for any of those things.
Yeah.
And so you can't really consider it. All you can consider is what was in the RFP and the scoring that was done by staff. If you want to consider those things, and like I said earlier, what I would recommend is you just go ahead and reject all bids, and then we can come up with an RFQ that incorporates all of the things that you just mentioned.
Yeah, I represent the best well-being of the city and its constituents alongside not just our budget. And so we have a company willing to meet the lowest bid and, willing to be a partner with the city, someone who's given back to our community, then that's the person I would like to. And so being forced to vote for someone who's not gonna offer those things is just not within the best interest of me, and I don't know how I would explain that to the residents. I mean, hey, you guys supported me, but I can't provide you guys with someone who's willing to help you guys out. I can't do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and push to reject all bids.
So I have a question and also a comment. So Mike, if we were to reject all bids, how much more would we have to invest in terms of money when it comes to accepting new bids, reviewing them? I know you mentioned staff time. Do you have an approximate?
I'd approximate, I'll say about 1,000 to 1,500, somewhere in that range, just as far as, obviously, we'd be crafting this differently than what our existing RFP would be, where we're including points for community benefit and things like that. So I'd probably go in 1,000 to 2,000 range if you took up all the hours and added the fully burdened cost for preparation, review, and then proposal scoring and bringing it back to the council.
Okay, so I just want the council to take into account that we're going to be spending extra money when this was already put out. We didn't specify that we were looking for all these different items, so I think it would be unfair to all the other companies that bid for us to base our decision based on these items that were not part of the bid. So just take all that into consideration. And then third, this entire time we've been working off of keeping a tight purse. We've been trying to lower our costs on different things, including our hirings. So how is it not that now we want to splurge an extra $7,000, $8,000? Of course, if we could bring that down, that would be wonderful. But then at that point, I'm just a little baffled because we do have employees and we do have to protect them first, and we are entering negotiations with our own employees, so we need to take all these costs into account, and how much that is going to increase it for the city. Just a thought.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I would like to ask the city manager, do you think it would be possible to reopen the process, the RFP, and have a reliable way of quantifying these abstract benefits of community contributions to the city of Bell Gardens, meaning putting it in a way in the RFP that we'll be able to go back and say, oh, they're providing not only a cost savings, but they're providing this amount of help or contribution to the community, because I find it a little bit difficult to imagine a situation where I receive several proposals and then I have this company offering to provide employment for the community or to fund a fireworks show or to do X, Y, and Z. One of the benefits that I find in this particular RFP in relying solely on the, not only just the qualifications of the company, but also on just the lowest bid, is that we can actually quantify how much savings there are coming into the city. So that's sort of a very, very convenient way of doing it, in my opinion. But if you have any other ideas or any experience that you might want to share with us, I'd be happy to hear it.
So, Councilmember, I think to the extent quantifying things, having a financial background, there's some things that would be easily quantifiable. And so I think as I would envision some kind of a new RFP or RFQ that goes out, we would ask for a description of community benefit and quantification to the extent that you could reliably quantify something. So obviously, if you're going to contribute, if you say you're going to contribute $5,000 to a fireworks show, let's say, or the value of $5,000, maybe your secondary business is selling fireworks, and so you can provide $5,000 worth of fireworks, and maybe it's only at a cost for $3,000 for the for a proposer, something like that. We would just need information that we could use to quantify. We'd have to look at it, verify it. Some things are probably more easily quantifiable than others. Some things there may be no way to quantify it other than it just makes sense, or it's common sense that it is valued.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I have to say, I mean, splurging, the word splurging kind of, baffles me. But anyways, we just approved a study to be done in regards to fees, because in the long run, we see that there may be a benefit. I also think that when you look at what a company may offer, it's not about quantifying it just now, it's about looking at it, whereas what in the long run, what benefits is it going to bring? So again, my thought has always been cheaper doesn't mean better. So I do have concerns in regards to being tied down to an RFP. I think that the council should have that option. I'm sure it's like business calls for business, competition calls for competition. I think that now, I think the council may be surprised in regards to how, I hate calling you vendors, but I will use that word, how the vendors will now maybe come back with better proposals for, our community. I am interested in seeing that our vendors, and I hate that word again, are more active in humanitarian causes here for our city. For many years, it was about how are they going to gain, but now I think that the council needs to be more aware of how can we help these companies help also, and take in mind how they can provide help to our community, our children, our kids, our facilities. And if somebody's going to be hired, I don't know how many times I am being called by residents asking, are there any employment opportunities out there? And my response is I can't, I don't know. But now at least I would be able to say, well, this is what this vendor stated, so you may want to go apply there because, you are a Bell Gardens resident, or if there's a youth program, or if there's a fireworks show, or if there's, that we do have the ability as a council to go up to them and say, hey, you know what, can you now, kind of come in and help us out with this? So I think I would consider also rejecting all offers and starting all over again. I think it could be expedited, right, City Manager?
Yes, Councilmember, I think so. We've got an RFP, we have to work with legal counsel to get the language right, and obviously the potential service providers have submitted proposals and could maybe make changes just based on the changes we make to our RFQ.
And what I would like to tell the vendors is, I think that this council is very, very unique in its ways. This council looks to benefit Bell Gardens. It's new council, new leadership, and, you know, what we're looking for is to benefit our kids, to benefit our families. So if there's anything else that can be offered by, you know, by any vendor at any RFQ, not RFP, RFQ, then that's the direction I would ask the council to go.
You know, ultimately, at the end of the day, we're paying for these services with taxpayer money. This is your money that you guys paid for. You guys are gonna get your trees cut, you guys are gonna get your, you know, your landscaping done, and at the end of the day, what did you get in return? You know, and what I mean is like, we don't wanna just be giving, these people make hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I don't mean the tree or the landscaping, I mean, you know, trash vendors, you know, transportation vendors, tow companies, they all make all this money, but what do they get back to you guys? Nothing.
A service.
I grew up in this city. I never had an employment. I never had an opportunity from any of those vendors. And it's time that we change that. There's cities like Burbank, Glendale, Pasadena, Beverly Hills, Huntington Beach, these cities, because they're more affluent and they're more educated, they have these services for the youth, but we have nothing. And it's time that we change that. So, you know, and I'm not splurging. I mean, we have somebody who just, you know, you match the lowest bid. I mean, imagine the next round might even be way better, you know? So I think that it's time that we really take focus and see it's not just about money and what benefits the city, it's what benefits the constituents. We don't just represent the stakeholders in our budget. We also represent the students that live here, the kids that live here, the parents, you know, and if there's an uncle or a granddad somewhere in the city that needs a job, hey, we now know that somebody's gonna hire you and they have to hire you because it'll be in the verbiage of their contract. So that's what I want to say.
Yes.
City manager, what would the timeline look like if we wanted to reissue the RFP, including specifications for community contributions or whatnot?
Councilmember, realistically, obviously, my goal is always to come back to the next council meeting, which doesn't always, sometimes you miss a presentation here or there. The goal would be to come back on October 14th, but realistically, as I'm running through that turnaround would maybe only provide 7 to 10 days for a potential service provider to respond, because we'll need a couple days to draft something up that's, you know, that's lawful and that makes sense. So I would say realistically 14th council meeting would be pushing it, 28th would be definitely doable, 28th of October.
So I don't think we should rush this if we are going to include all these different specifications. And also just to make sure that when we do compare these new RFQs, that it's what's, you know, what they submitted on paper and not what they come and they tell us in public comment. Because then it's unfair and I can't verify those facts and it goes out to our public speakers. It needs to be on paper and I need to see it. And, you know, and especially included in the contract, it's not just false promises. That's my biggest concern because it could sound as pretty as you want, but I need to see it materialize. So that's just my suggestion, and if we rush this process, it's gonna give an unfair advantage.
I think that because the RFP was done before, we can, you know, contact whoever and send it out again, but specifically for those that are here today, you know, contact them, send it out, they're here, they know. So I don't think it gives an advantage to anyone. I think that if anything, it gives an advantage to us Bell Gardens residents and our Bell Gardens community. So, you know, I truly, you know, believe that we should go for the way that it should have been, which would have been the RFQ instead of an RFP.
Yeah, my last comment here will be that I hope the community can see that we're trying to do things right here. I mean, at least in my own decision-making process, I'm taking into account what is the best thing that I can offer the city. So, to me, this is an opportunity to allow the best bidder to come forth. And if the best bidder already submitted the best bid, then we're probably gonna have to go with that person all over again. So it might be redundant, but I think I'm gonna be taking every step possible to make sure that we absolutely get the best that we can. And that is my personal opinion on this.
From what I'm gauging from the council, it would be a motion to reject all proposals and reissue the request for proposals, RFQ. Is that correct? May I have a motion for this?
I'll go ahead and motion.
I'll second.
Any objection? Seeing none, the rejection of all proposals, motion carries.
If I